Welcome to 650. This is going to be a little rough sledding because there have been some changes to Zoom and it is not nearly as user friendly as it used to be, and they're hiding a lot of the practices. But I will show you PowerPoints on the left side of my screen and I will talk you through it, and I will post these PowerPoints so that you can view them later on. But let's get started. I'm eager to get this show on the road. I'm eager to get you introduced to some of the concepts that are interesting in this 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 class, this industry, and its dynamics and the way it's changing virtually week to week. So let's get going. Okay. I wish I could make these a little bigger, but whoops. See, the trouble is, if I make them bigger, then I get lost. I don't want to do that entirely. So let me make this a little bigger. Come on. There. That's about where it should be. Let me see if I can do a little bit more. No, it doesn't want to split the screen any more than that. Anyway, this is the introduction. I'm going to talk about what's expected. A number of you have been in my classes before, so things are pretty standardized. You do the work, you post it, I give you the grades, and we keep moving. Occasionally we have questions. I answer those. I'm available, readily available to discuss things or to take complaints or to take compliments. So that happens once in a while. Anyway, so this is what we're going to talk about today: the process stuff, how we do things in the course, what I expect and what you should be prepared to deliver. And then I'm going to talk about the industry itself, an overview of what we call the media industries, and get you introduced to some of the concepts, the uh, organizational and economic concepts that we're going to be dealing with. This is almost a mini MBA course in industry. So it's not complicated. We're not going to do a lot of math. We're not going to do any accounting, but we're going to do some talking about how things are done and how it works. Uh, Canvas, in general, everything other than the book will be posted. I put a few articles up there, both academic articles and ones that I pulled from the business press, because I like to keep current. I like to watch what's going on. I like to share it with you. Grades will be posted weekly, so you can keep track of them. Beware, though, that if Canvas has a quirk in it, that there is a uh, if there's no grade, even a zero, um, posted in the assignment area for that assignment, then it figures that that has been pulled from a consideration, and so it doesn't count as part of the bigger picture. In other words, if you give me two papers and they're both 10 points, so you get 20 out of 20. But if there is a third assignment and you don't put anything in, I don't put a zero in, then Canvas still sees 20 out of 20, even though it really is 20 out of 30. So don't count on it. I will try and I'll keep it up to date and keep you informed of what you're missing. But it is graduate school, and I expect you to meet the obligations. If you have problems, let me know. I've had students everywhere from losing a grandparent to coming down with COVID, and we've managed our way through it. And I don't want my intention is not to damage your grade point, but it is to honestly reflect your grade point for the work you do. In a typical week, you will read a chapter or two from the book, and I hope you've gotten the book now. There will be some reading or some videos to supplement that structure that's being provided by the book, and typically 3 assignments, an essay or two, and a discussion board where you need to post twice a week. And uh, as we get along into the class, about in the third week, there will be an essay and work on a personal project, an analysis of a media company, which you'll get started on. Um, I, some of these papers will be opinion, but most will be research papers where you gather information and write down uh, and make conclusions about what you have found. Um, you can communicate to me through Canvas email or Brunau email or text or phone. My phone number is on the syllabus. I'm readily available, except for a couple mornings a week, but I'm around even in the evening if you want to talk or if you want to Zoom. Um, the book I like because it talks about the media industry in the way that it is structured and gives some historical perspective. And it also talks about the mergers and the changes and the integration that's going on in the industry. And we've seen so many different kinds of things. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He's a car manufacturer who bought a social media, which is part of the media industries, and now he's turning that into a news and facts and opinions outlet, which is kind of peculiar and doesn't fit any mold that we know about. Um, so it's a dynamic place to be. It's an exciting place to be. And my plan, my goal is to have you familiar enough with it so that you can get a job doing something in these industries, whether it's anything from social media to traditional television to evolving television, streaming television. Um, Codes on the assignments simply means that each assignment has a specific alphanumeric code, and it's based on the week. So the one assignment for week 1 would be 1A. And that just helps me to keep organized. It helps me to tie things into the grade book. And so I ask that you put those on all your papers. Um, um, This is a survey course of a very broad subject, as I've mentioned, and it's interesting and exciting, and you have seen enormous changes in your lifetime, and you will continue to see changes. I want to provide you with an understanding of the big picture and what might be coming down the stream and things that are happening right now. I mean, there's changes that are occurring under our feet, which are going to affect major portions of this industry, largely in entertainment, but also in the news industry, in the magazines. You remember magazines? It's very peculiar, and I'm saddened to say that the magazine industry is almost defunct because it moves too slowly. And we'll talk about public relations, we'll talk about advertising, we'll talk about marketing and the effects that the digitization of the industry is having. We'll talk about the mergers and acquisitions and break aparts, and the new companies that pop up and the new companies that try and fail. Um, and I would just say, in a short course like this, 7 weeks, deadlines are essential. And as we move along, you'll see that a number of your assignments will build into a larger um, uh, long-term project, your major paper project. Um, I talk about the rise of the information economy as the book does, and it's a big portion of the national and international economy of modern companies is taken up by this information economy. And uh, who would have thought that 15 years ago, when you were children, that so much money would be made in social media, in the what is essentially free medium, and that people are using it for shopping, they're using it for media transmission, they're using it for all kinds of connections that are being made, and organizations from AT&T, well, not AT&T isn't a good example, but from Pepsi to Coca-Cola to Publix to Walmart are using social media and the tools of social media to increase their business and make themselves more profitable and um, more responsive to their customers. And have you noticed how quickly you can get stuff from Amazon and how Walmart is trying to move that along? That's a that's a product of the media industries infiltrating the uh, purchasing of day-to-day goods. It's kind of remarkable. And so American jobs, and I talk about American because that's where we are, have moved from industrial to white collar to service industry and information industry. And that's happened over the last 100 years. We've seen this enormous transition of people and the skills that are required and the way people are trained and the way our economy works. What does it mean to study media industries? Well, they make, package, and sell intellectual property. Aha. And you're saying, well, wait a minute. What about this AI stuff? Well, that is having an impact. This Google or this Zoom that I'm using has an AI option. And I think what that means is it will uh, transcribe this video and make it available immediately and add some information to it. Google is offering AI supported search options. If you don't know how to ask for something, Google's Gemini will help you do that. Um, don't use it for your papers. I can tell. And there are tools that I can run your papers through and see if there's been some AI help. And in my book, that only makes sense. I use the internet for a lot of research and some AI tools, but I don't take the AI per se. I use it and make it my own. And I think that's the only honorable, reasonable, and intelligent way to operate with this new tool as it develops. I don't think it's going to become a thinking engine anytime soon. So it's the media industries are pervasive. They're all around us. We use them every day, not even thinking about it. I want to have us examine the processes that media output goes through, whether it's simply somebody like me sitting down and doing a podcast and providing opinion and information that my experience or my research can provide to my listeners, um, and not have them pay for it. Sometimes it's paid for, sometimes it isn't. But it's also the use in marketing, in brand management, in brand equity development, um, advertising, all kinds of influences on us. And the basic processes are still there. You have to create something, although AI says they are going to create it for you. I don't buy that. You create something, you polish it, make it good, make sure it's not borrowed from somebody else, and you make some kind of production, whether it's putting it on a website, whether it's uh, cutting and splicing and producing a podcast, whether it's developing video, or whether it's putting out a magazine, as I said, or putting on a nightly news show. The production has elements that have to be brought together and linked and polished so that it becomes a finished product worthy of investing in, or at least investing time in. And then there's the distribution. How does it get to your audience? And not everything goes on the internet. The trucks have to get stuff back and forth. Newspapers have to be delivered, although there are very few of them that are being delivered these days. Magazines have to get to Barnes and Noble and the local grocery store. So there are these three elements: the creation, production, and distribution, which are key to media industries. And we'll talk about how that has changed over time and what it means today and what it could mean in the future. So production is all of the elements that are involved in making and circulation of media. It's a very broad term of art in the industry. We're going to talk about what's going on. I pulled these couple of headlines from the Wall Street Journal. Edgar Bronfman, who is a media multi-billionaire who runs companies, he's bidding for Paramount, which was part of a deal put together by 20th Century Fox, which was owned Fox Industries and Publications, and they spun off the Paramount movie development and production arm, and now it's being bought again. And National Amusements, which is the Edgar Bronfman company, is trying to link those two together. National Amusements is the parent of Paramount, and Bronfman is putting together a bid for those two companies, and which will take them out of where they belong, where they have been for the past couple of years. And there's a big fight going on about what's going on with 20th Century Fox and the family that used to run it. The same thing is true of CBS. There's another big fight going on within the family that used to run that place. But I took out this other headline, and it says marketers, people who are selling and producing marketing materials for whatever it is, from groceries to computers, they're running into something. And we're seeing this play out in politics a little bit now, where ad agencies are buying web online ad space. Companies like Google and Apple have their big web presences, and they sell advertising space to people who want to get the word out. Now, typically, an agency would say, okay, Pepsi, you want to be on Google in the sports area, so we're going to buy you some space on Google Sports or on ESPN Sports. What's happening is that the marketing agencies are buying that space and then reselling it to their clients for a profit. So they're kind of becoming agents for Google or Apple or Amazon as well, and making some money along the way. So, it's not a big deal, but it is happening. And if you were in the marketing business and you say, wait a minute, why am I buying from you? Why am I writing a check to you? Why am I not writing a check to Amazon for using their website? And so it's just kind of a weird transition in the industry. Let me go to some more of these. Let's see, we're on that one here. We did that one. What are the media industries? Well, they're defined by medium. Now, by medium, we mean the production and distribution organization: television, radio, film, music, podcast, streaming, all those things. We could put on there. I forget about them part of the time, but publications, books. it's astonishing to me how many books are being produced. I try and keep up, but there are every week virtually. The Wall Street Journal brings out 15 new books that they think are worth reading, um, because the means of production have become so uh, simplified and speedy that there's not nearly the process of uh, writing a book and then having it checked and then getting it set and then getting it out. It's things are happening within almost within a month. Sometimes it takes a little longer than that, but people are developing books and getting them out. I knew a person who worked for me for a while, and she did a couple of books in a month. I mean, they were not big books, and they were more reportage than they were creative. But the processes of digitization are making book publishing a lot different than it ever has been. Um, so the media are defined by what they produce. So we talk about the television industry, the radio industry, such as it is. And the media industries are also cut up by the activity. Are they producing? Are they distributing? Or are they exhibiting? Think of in the old days, very old days when I was a child, movie production houses controlled everything. They had the writers, they had the actors, they had the production facility, they did the development, they did the reproduction, and they used to send out these big cans of film to theaters, and then they would distribute it. Well, these days, if you I was watching a movie the other day, and it had about 10 different organizations who were involved in the development and production of a film. And because people want to take their piece of the profits along the way. So uh, the activity is uh, splintered, shall we say, but it is still happening. Distribution is no longer by tin cans of celluloid; it's by digital wideband going to uh, AMC at the collection. Why does it matter? Well, convergence is changing the nature of the industry. This bringing together of stuff. When the Wall Street Journal has podcasts and daily news shows and um, radio broadcasts and the printed paper plus the digital paper plus Barron's and a couple of other publications, as well as a quarterly magazine, there is a new kind of organization that has to come out of that. And then we just talked about conflict and ownership, and there's some real interesting fights going on, and there's some interesting uh, endings going on as well. Why do we care? Well, the transition describes a significant reorganization in how industries operate and how they make money and how much money they make, and how you have to be very fleet of foot. You have to be very nimble to stay in the industry because things change so quickly. Big transitions in the overall economy. Um, I was in Walmart the other day, and there's a big sign. They have these two big red boxes that are literally from the Red Box Company, where you'd put in your credit card and you'd get a DVD to take home and watch on your DVR. Signs are up as of now, as if it wasn't obvious. Um, Redbox is no longer distributing video from this box. And maybe it's just cheaper to leave it there. I don't know how long Walmart's going to allow them to keep it there, but they've been superseded, just as videotapes were superseded by the DVDs. So things are continuing to happen, and it's been more pronounced by the influence of digitization and globalization, where there are uh, broadcasts. I'm listening almost daily to one from the BBC, a podcast of world news, because I don't get the right mix from other sources. So if you're wanting to be in this industry, the industry of communications, I'll call it broadly, you need to understand what's going on in the industry, how it's moving and changing, and better position yourself for some of the jobs that are going to be available. Um, Media industries matter because they affect our knowledge, they affect our opinions, they affect our very governments. Um, I think they are fundamental to democracy because we have to make decisions and vote, and take we have to make sure that the people who are running our government are held to account, and we have to have information to do that. Um, we need to, we as thinking people, as researchers and intellectuals, I use the term very broadly, um, to understand the industry that we are aligning ourselves with and how it is affecting society and how we can best operate in that to make society better and more efficient and more honorable, more reasonable, more informed. Um, and we need to understand how they're making profits. And because we don't want to go to work for a nonprofit organization, I suspect, I mean, nonprofit being unprofitable. Nonprofit is not a bad thing, but to be unprofitable is not a good place to be. Here's a couple of some definitions about what the way we'll be talking about things. I advise you to look this up when I post the PowerPoints. But industries are a group of companies, usually specialized and in competition with one another. Think of the TV networks. There's four of them. Four primary ones. The CW kind of counts, and PBS kind of counts, but there's ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And so that would be the television industry, but then you have to put in the overlay of the streaming apps, the streaming systems like Netflix and Paramount and HBO. Um, the markets are the target audiences that are being aimed at, who they want to subscribe or to somehow uh, take in their output, including advertisements, which they're being paid to carry. Um, Market share is what percentage of those target audiences do they hold? And there's a lot of numbers out there about that. But, essentially, if you think of television audiences for evening television, it's way down from what it used to be. But still, it's big numbers, millions and millions of people every evening. And the different networks are fighting for a bigger share of that market because with a bigger share of the market, they can charge higher rates for placement of advertising in their shows. Revenue, simply the money that comes in from advertising and from subscriptions, from cable fees, and from pay per view, and all of the other sources that we see. And finally, profit is what's left over after the costs of doing business have been subtracted from the revenue. Um, so that's the quick MBA experiment and some fundamentals that we need to keep in mind as we're going through this. The characteristics of 21st century media industries, they are, well, organization, the book calls them cultural industries. We say they are organized by the primary creative personnel. Somebody has to put something on paper, has to have an idea about what's going to be interesting and saleable, what people are going to tune in for, in other words. And we'll talk later in the class about reboots. There's an enormous number of old shows that are being brought back to television and to streaming services because they think there's some residual value in those, as well as the original streaming uh, programs. The technical craft, the editors, and all of the people behind that who load it up and make it available through the streaming services or over the air or through cable. There's people who have to do all of those things, and they have to make some decisions about what's going to be on where and how this fits the needs and desires of the audience, and how we should market ourselves. How should we determine who the audience is and what's interesting to them so we can link those two things together. Creative managers take the idea and the writing and make it into something that is production worthy. I mean, if you have a script, it may be a Shakespeare script, but you still have to figure out who's going to play what parts and what kind of a shoot it's going to be, and technical issues, and somebody has to make all those decisions and find the places to shoot and all the other kinds of things. Owners and executives make big decisions like buying a company or selling part of a company, and they reap profits. That's why they're in business. And sometimes they make good decisions. Sometimes they don't make such very good decisions. So there's a whole string of hierarchy and different kinds of skills and thought processes that come together. We talk about there's an unusual degree of creativity in the creative process, autonomy. A writer can sit down and make up stuff, but it has to be available to, or it has to be attractive to an audience. And so there are restrictions on it. You can't just put out something that you think is cool and say, everybody should watch this. It's a very different relationship that you have to think about when you're doing that. And again, it's creation, reproduction, circulation. It's that thinking it through and putting it together. It's the development and processing of it so it's available for whatever medium you're going to send it to, whether it's digital or movie, which also is digital. So virtually everything is digital, whether it's going to go over the internet or if it's going to be zoomed through big pipes, which overwhelm the internet, or if it's going to be delivered. All of those things have to be taken into account as part of media processes. The system of rewards is interesting, and this is one thing that makes it very personal for us who are in this industry or want to be in the industry. That creative workers typically forego benefits of secure working conditions, and in most cases earn relatively little until they have a hit. And it's kind of the gig economy. You work on a project and then you go off and work on another project, and then you work on another project, unless you get hooked into one of a blockbuster like Yellowstone or Outlander. Outlander's been going on for a long time, or Grey's Anatomy, for crying out loud. 21 seasons, and if you were a writer there, you'd probably have a lot of gray hair now that you didn't have a while ago. So being part of the creative process to me is exciting. It's interesting, but it also has a lot of downside. I know a lot of writers who are doing a lot of different things, including bartending and Ubering, until they hit it big. The rewards for media industry people come in copyright and syndication sales rather than through the primary contract work, because you have to get something it's a ways between the final draft and the production, just because it takes time to get all those different pieces together, get the actors together, get the camera crews together, fly them to wherever, Hawaii or Australia or whatever. That's why I see a lot of things being made here in Georgia or in Canada because it's not as expensive. Um, and so, one of the interesting things to me is how the copyright and syndication uh, focus has become very important. And there was a thing going on this week where um, one of the candidates for the president was her staff. I just spilled the beans, but anyway, the campaign staff was buying ad space and putting publication or other material in with a different headline than it had originally. And they said, that's advertising. We're just changing the acceptability and the attraction for our audience. And of course, some of these organizations, news organizations, who were generating the original material, the creative part. One, they weren't getting paid for it because it was just being taken. Two, they think that their headline was more appropriate and more honest or more uh, uh, fit better with the material than these advertising headlines that were being put onto it. So it's a whole new twist that we haven't seen before. And it's, again, it's one of these things that's happened dynamically in the industry, and we're seeing it happen before our very eyes. Over rewarding, very few. Think about J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter books. She became a billionaire because she wrote 7 or 8 books. Well, she was smart. She kept control of it. She marketed them well, and they were popular. They hit a vein. I didn't understand it myself. I've read some of them. I've watched most of the movies because I had kids that were that age. But that is the exception, the big, big, big exception, not the rule. That you can get highly rewarded if you're in this industry and you are good at it. Fitting into an economic pattern. In many industries, the products the consumer gets from the market depend only on his or her preferences. Now, if you go to the grocery store, you buy what you like. In the media industry, you have to buy what's available, although this is becoming less stringent as we go along because there are old shows, there are new shows of all kinds, there are very narrowly focused shows, there are podcasts. I mean, thousands of podcasts about every imaginable topic. Some of them not so honorable, not so socially acceptable, but you are able as a consumer to find things that appeal to you. Now, it may not appeal to a whole bunch of people like you, and so they may not be profitable, but the cost of production is such that you can spend a good deal of time creating these things and then and see if it works. That's the good news. In traditional media industries, the fixed costs are substantial still. It costs a lot of money to put on a TV show. Excuse me, every night. It costs a lot of money to produce TV shows. My wife and I are fans of some old TV shows, and as we go to find them, we see that they have 22 episodes in a season. That's remarkable because now we're down to 13 on average, and maybe 14 or 15. But the costs are so much more that they're just not producing as many as they used to. Um, so the upfront costs um, are expensive, so they make fewer bets on what they are going to put out. We're seeing that broaden now because of Netflix is producing 200 new productions a year. 200, because they've been so successful and they can afford to do it, and they have a wonderful fan base. The networks are not doing anywhere close to that. There are more than 250 movies being produced in the US. I don't want to talk about around the world. Again, partly because they've been able to reduce their production costs by doing it digitally and video and reducing some other costs and putting CGI, the computer generated backgrounds and effects, rather than trying to produce them live. So the economics are changing some, but still somebody's making a decision and you have to decide whether you like it or not. Um, Kind of like buying cereal, but there's so many cereals and the cereals are so cheap. But notice they're doing everything they can to make different options. Think of Oreos. That's astonishing. Um, preference externalities. So the preference externalities have to do with a production company or organization making decisions, and they are external to you and me because we don't have a lot of say in what's being produced, except through our dollars, and we vote that way. So that's the end of week one video. Um, it's an era of change and it continues and it's speedy, it's exciting and interesting, and it can be a little difficult to manage if you're not aware of it. The potential effects on society and governance are profound. We're seeing things happen that we would not have expected. Watch out for the Democratic National Convention and um, the turmoil that's likely to appear there this week. Um, to be in this industry, in these industries, you have to be fleet of foot and very nimble, and you have to keep your skills and your information up to date. So that's why we talk about this stuff. That's why it's important to bring it up. And finally, the change is going to continue. It has not it has not slowed down in my estimation. And we can talk about that too as we go along. So that's it for this week. I'm going to end the share. And I am going to expand myself into a bigger frame and let me know if I can explain anything or if you have questions. And I will be in touch as we go along because it's exciting and there's a lot of news being made. So have a good week and let me know what you're up to, and we will continue this discussion.